Okay, show off some more oddball stuff here. We are on the north abutment of the Changewater Trestle. Changewater, New Jersey. Once the main line of the Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western Railroad. So the original trestle here was built in 1856 by John I. Blair for the Warren Railroad. I think the original might have been wood, but the metal one might have been an original. It did have some changes to it. Over on the other side, there is still a concrete pier over on this far side. Sometime after 1900, the far side concrete pier, if you drive across the bridge below there, that was a replacement for what was once a couple of high stone arches. Imagine what the Kinzua viaduct looked like. Or rather, a better example is probably something else. I don't know. But anyway, that was the stone arches were replaced by concrete ones over there. We're looking down here at where my Element is parked. That was where a satellite facility to the Asbury Graphite Company used to be. There was a large wooden structure, and next to it a large stone structure. They were all demolished. A lot of it in the 1990s, where the parking lot is, and you can still see some of the bases of the building there, and you can have a little bit of the footings visible over here. Changewater is supposedly so named because of the changes in the water caused by the mill races. I've always been told there was a grist mill right across the river, far side of the bridge, that stood also until the early 2000s. By that time, wooden parts of the graphite mill on this side were destroyed, and only the little bit of the stone remained, and that was destroyed. There was a dam on the Musconetcong River right over here, which was also removed, and some of the wood was salvaged by a local history group as well. We're looking up the Musconetcong River over through here. So this bridge abutment is really a pretty cool one. It's not just an abutment, it's kind of like a vertical I-beam made of stone. Here, you see here. Beautiful work. So like I said, this goes back to 1856. And the bridge here remained in place. It was abandoned about 1955, torn out in 1959. There was actually one guy that died, fell off of this abutment over here, near where I'm standing. So it's a little unnerving being out here on this thing. I'm right on the edge. Not quite as high over on this bit over here, but falling off of this would not be good. And I had to go through a really narrow spot of weeds here. So, taken out in 1959. When this was built, it was the main line. It became the main line of Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western, out to Hampton Junction. So that was from 1856. And then in 1866, the Morris and Essex Railroad to the north of here in Washington. Move some of this stuff out of the way here. Morris and Essex Railroad built, not a spot to fall. Morris and Essex Railroad built its line out to Phillipsburg, crossed over the Lackawanna in Washington. Here you can see how it's kind of narrow, either of these sides. I'm kind of walking a narrow section in between the drops here. These abutments go out. In 1866, they built out that way, but then by 1868, it became the Morris and Essex division of the Lackawanna. So they shifted their main line to the east onto the Morris and Essex, and this became the Hampton Secondary. It's a good view of it right here. Get an idea of what we're seeing. So this was a secondary line. The whole line was double tracked through from Hampton to Scranton, but not this spot. It actually did switch to a single track at this point. My grandfather tells me that he sneaked away from home in Hampton at the time, which was the junction. He sneaked away from home, and him and his friends walked out across this bridge when it was here. And it was a little nerve-wracking because it was single track, and if a train came, they might be in trouble. But he told me that there were these little barrels. There's like outsets of the bridge with barrels on them. In case the bridge caught fire, they could go out and stand next to these water barrels that were maintained out on the bridge. So that's another neat little piece of information that might get lost in time. Over below us over here, one piece right over there, see that little bit of a red building on this side of the road? That actually once served as the post office section, I think it was, for Changewater. And that was the local general store. So the main building burned down. I think it was in the 70s. You can still see a little bit of where the edge of the foundation of that would have been. Right over through here. So he was kind of a local legend too, the storekeeper here. Oh, go back over this way. So the bridge, it's a double stone arch bridge. It is to be rehabilitated by Warren County and widened. The upper end of it was widened between the 70s and 80s. The old main double arch stone bridge was built in 1900, and the downstream end of it is to be widened again, but my understanding is the upstream end is going to be refaced and the stone facade preserved. I don't know if this is coming through on the audio, but you can hear the train still active up in Washington. House over here is a barn that was turned into a house. Beautifully done. The railroad right of way here is state park land, but it's undeveloped. It doesn't go all the way through either, so don't try hiking it through. So the store down there below, that was owned by Edson Conner. I believe he inherited it from his father. The right of way over this way goes to where Changewater Station was just up this way, as well as a creamery. There's a sort of collapsing water tower there. It's most recently Maxwell Farms. How am I going to go down this without dying here? So Edson Conner was the local store proprietor. Let me try to hang on to some trees going up here. Whoa. There we go. Kind of be ready to grab hold. So Edson Conner was, the legend of him was that he was so cheap that his wife had a heart attack or something. And he charged the guy that called the emergency squad for a dime to use the phone in his store. And my grandfather bought the house that I used to live in Port Colden, the one that burned down, from Conner, that kind of intentionally put him on a payment plan to purchase it so they could collect some more money in the long run with interest. And then, as the story goes, Conner died in the store, full of food, from starvation. So, anyway, that was the story I was told growing up. You can see some of the oddball shape of this pier from down here, how it almost looks like it's set up like an I-beam, but only oriented vertically. This must have been kind of a Lackawanna thing, because there's another bridge that was referred to as the Highbridge up near Canadensis in the Poconos, that was replaced by a culvert a little after 1900. But the original bridge abutments are in place, and the one side of that is similar to this. We'll make our way down over here. Pull another one of these. And of course you have the story of the Changewater murders that happened just up the road over here, but not really close enough to those houses to have a good look at that right now. So let's look up the piers. I have one more oddity to point out of this. We got a theory why it was like this. Some nice pokeweed. There's the stone piers. So these are some pretty substantial stone piers, like giant monoliths here. But if you were to look up the hill here at the end of this abutment, one oddity is that it has a kiln built into it. So my friends and I have always been, what was that about? Why is there a kiln there? Our theory, that I think is probably correct, is that the kiln was built into the sidewall here so that they could fire the mortar to build these piers on site. It's a pretty big undertaking, so it's the best guess I have. If anybody knows any better, I'd love to hear the story. So the settlement here goes back to the 1700s. There was a forge on the other side here, part of the forge building. You can kind of see through the trees here. It's near the intersection of Forge Hill Road and Musconetcong River roads over here. Let's come on over here. And we'll give you a better look at the 1900 stone arch. If I can get the shade long enough on it. Yeah, I have a little bit of footing here. Walk a little closer. So anyway, it's a beautiful arch bridge here. Over in here is where the dam would have been. The other mill building stood over here. Just a beautiful spot here. We've done a lot of Metro Trails hikes ending right up here at this spot. My dad says that when he was little, they used to come in here and play with the graphite that was left inside some of the buildings. So I'm sure a lot of you have some great stories about Changewater, so share them in the comments. Love to hear them. But there's a little for you anyway. Thanks for watching.